Hi, my name is Amy.
Hi, I'm Catherine.
Hello, I'm Christopher. So for the problem for our project, we worked with our mentor, whose name is Aaron, and we built a website that's similar to the tools that writers at news companies use to type stories out and on a website, and also the similar to the websites that editors use to review and check their stories. And also students and teachers and anyone doing their homework can use a text editor that allows them to work together at the same time on an assignment, so they can use our website. And sorry.
To create an online word processor with real-time collaboration like Google Docs that can be used in a content management system to be easily exported to WordPress.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the technology we use Node.js, which is like a server that we use for JavaScript, and also Express handlebars, which allows us to have variables and send them from the server to the front end, which is like the user's web browser, and also AWS, Elastic Beanstalk, and DynamoDB. Those are also like AWS related technologies, and also Mirror is like a text box that you can use to and see the updates from everyone who's using who's typing in words and sentences. And Google Authentication, we use that to be able to log in and sign in, and it's also safe too. And also CSS and JavaScript, those are the programming languages we use to be able to style and also make our website dynamic so it can change.
So for the project, what I worked on was creating a data model for both the users and the posts with DynamoDB and Node.js. And I also made the route for the dashboard. I set up environmental variables in order to hide the AWS secret keys. And I also incorporated Webpack and Mirror, which are the tools used for the actual text editor.
Nice. And also I created a post page which is a template that that I use Express handlebars for, and I'm able to also made a route handling functions for creating and updating posts, and basically you can edit a post that's already made, or you can create a new one. And also I worked with the team on the Postmirror style of the text editor, like how it looks basically, and also I worked on the update features on the I helped with the update features on the post data model on DynamoDB.
I worked on setting up the Express boilerplate and also worked on adding Google Auth for logging and signing in user. I also worked on creating the Auth routes for adding the users to the database.
So here is a quick close-up of the user class and post class and the architecture. So for the user class, which I used Node.js and JavaScript to create, and as well as DynamoDB to put the info into a database, I had 3 methods. Insert user, which just put the user as well as their information, such as first name, last name, and their special ID into database, get user by ID, and also get user from DB object. And those 2 methods work in tandem in order to convert the database object to an actual user class. And similarly, I also had a post class, which had 4 methods. Save post, which is similar to just inserting and updating into the database, getting posts from DB object, and also you can either get the post by ID or also getting a post by the email of the user. So for the project structure, it was basically the main files contained app.js, passport setup.js, which was used for the Google authentication, webpack.config.js, which had the information for the webpack build, and also other general like Git and build related files. And there were also 6 other folders. There was bin just for the general hosting onto the your local server. There was the client file, which contained the pose mirror setup. There was models, which contained the post and user's data model, as well as the .env file for the AWS keys. There was a public folder, which just contained CSS styling and the Webpack bundle. There was the routes folder, which contained the dashboard and post routes. And then there was the views folder, which contained all of the handlebars pages.
Here's a post page also, which has a title, like an input element or like a spot to put the title of the post, a spot to put or input element to put the name, and also for the slug, which is like the URL also. And also we have below we have the pose mirror text box, which allows people to work on an assignment together at the same time. You can see everyone's updates at one time, and also a button that links to the sign up, sign up, like to be able to go to the homepage, and submit button, let you submit a post. And also here's a code for the post page, which uses express handlebars, which allows the server to send like variables to the front end, which is the user's web browser. So we're able to like put the different names like the title, the author, and the slug. We're able to put those names in a server, send it to the web browser. Also, we were able to we were able to send the information that the user types into the form. We send it to the certain places depending if we're creating a post or updating a post.
So here's some of the code for the user's data model. There was a lot of code, obviously, in the project, so here's just a very close-up look at one of the components of the project. So for the user's data model code, you can see that I had to require something called UID in order to generate the custom ID for each user. And then I also had to require the .config, which contained the secret AWS keys. And then I also had a constant for the table name. And the way I defined the class was with first name, last name, picture, and locale, which is pretty standard for a WordPress or any other text editor account. So yeah, here's just defining the constructor. And then here is a method for inserting the user. As you can see, DynamoDB does have methods, so I had to use the .put method in order to insert all of the data into the database.
So this is the Google OAuth flow for login/sign up. So the way the flow works that when the user clicks the login button, the local server will direct to the Google site where it will communicate with server, and server then communicates with Google. And once the user grant the permission for having the information get back to the server, then the Google would send a code, and on that code, the server looks up if the user is already there in the database. If the user is not in the database, they will create a new user and save the data about the user in the database and log them in. And this is more close-up looks. As you can see that once the user clicks login, it forwards users request to Google, and then Google asks user if they grant permission. And if the user grant permission, then the put user on hold take the code from the URL. So like Google also give a user code along with it, and then request to Google with the code included. And with that code, you can get the information about the user. Using that code we get, once the user grants permission, we can use that code to go back to Google again and get all the information about that user. And once we have all the information, we can inquire our database to know if the user is there or not. If the user is not there, we create a new user, and if the user is already there, we log in that user. So this is the functions for Auth routes, where we accepting passport, so we require passport. And one of the routes, like slash Google routes, that's actually asks this route will actually ask the user if they want to grant permission to get the information. And once the user get the information, the Google slash callback routes get all the information and authenticate the user using Google OAuth. And this is the setup passport. So for the passport setup, we need Google Client ID and Google Client secret. So if we use environment variable to hide those secret keys, and what happens in async function is that using that Google Client ID and Google Client secret, we can make API calls to get information about that user. And once we have information about the user, we can create a new user and insert into the database.
So for the deployment process, it was pretty simple using Elastic Beanstalk, which is a service hosted by AWS for deploying and scaling web applications and services. Here you can see the general process and flow in the diagram. And the process was pretty simple. You just upload your code and then Elastic Beanstalk handles like deployment and every single part of it. So capacity, provisioning, load balancing, and auto scaling. So the lessons we learned from this project was collaborating with each other using Slack and GitHub. Something that I learned personally was the design principle separation of concerns, which means just separating a program into distinct sections so that each section addresses a separate concern. So instead of everything in one large file, we had many files that were separated by like whether it's front end or back end. And finally, we also learned basic debugging and how to use Google and Stack Overflow to solve problems. So if we had more time, we would have hoped to be able to export the post to WordPress and also add upon the CSS styling.
Thank you.
And here's our contact information if you want to email us or check out our GitHubs.
Thank you.
Thank you.